So after you administer all the items, you fill out the raw scores, the total raw scores under performance raw score total. So down here, I just put random ones there since we didn't actually do them. So we have 90, 110, 110. And so to convert this into a scaled score, actually first you would refer to raw score and you write the totals here. So we have 90, 110, and 110. So then after you write your raw scores, you refer back to page 2, and to get your scaled score, you will use Appendix B. So you'd refer to Appendix B, and you would find your score. So for example, we had 90. Our guy is 5 years old, by the way. So you would have under visual motor, you go down to find 90, which is right here. So his scaled score is 17 for visual motor. And then we find under fine motor 110, which is a scaled score of 13. And then for gross motor, we find 110, which is a scaled score of 11. And so after we filled these out, you go to page 1 and refer to the scaled score, and you'd write those same numbers under here. So you have 17, 13, and 11. So after you transfer those, go back to scaled score points plus or minus. And so for that, you'd go back to the Appendix B. Again, refer to the same chart. And you choose which confidence interval you'd want. So we're going to choose 90%. So with that, our plus or minus is 2, 1, and 1. So you'd put that in here. So scaled score points is 2, 1, 1. And we would write that we're doing a 90% confidence interval level. So we're going to add 2, subtract 2 to find the range. So this would be 19, and this would be 15. This would be 14. This would be 12. Strike that. Can we edit this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you do plus or minus 2. So this would be 15 to 19. This would be 12 to 14. And this would be 10 to 12. So again, that is the confidence interval 90% level. So after you find that, then we will jump to percentile rank, and you use Appendix C for this. So Appendix C, you refer to the scaled score again. And so using the percentile rank, so the percentile rank expresses the child's score and percentile points relative to his or her age group. And so this indicates the percentage of children tested who have scored equal to or lower than a specific score. So, and according to our percentile rank, so the scaled score for visual motor was 17. So we go over here and we see 99, so we put 99 here. We have 13 for fine motor, so we find that here, and that's an 84. And then for gross motor, we have 11, and we find that here, and that's 63. And so after we find the percentile rank, we'll go to the next box under the percentile rank confidence interval. So we're going to use these scaled range scores for this. So we'd refer to this same appendix. And so, for example, we take 15, and it's 95. We'll take 19, and that's 99.9. We'll take a 12, that's 75. Take a 14, that's 91. And then 10 and 12. So 10, 50, and then our 12 is 75. So this gives us the percentile rank confidence interval ranges. And so after we do this, we go to the percentile rank. Just kidding, we just did that. So we go to the age equivalent, which is found in Appendix D. And so we'd have to find our 5-year-old chart, which is on the back here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is find the age equivalent, which is found in Appendix D. And so you'd want to find the proper age. So our guy is 5 years old. And so under visual motor, we want to find our score, raw score of 90. So here we see that this level is greater than a 7-year, 11-month-old. So we'd write that here, so greater than 7-11. And then we'd find our raw score of 110 under fine motor, which is down here. Go all the way down. This is also greater than 7 years, 11 months. This guy's pretty advanced for his age. And then under gross motor, we have a raw score of 110. So we're going to find that under the 5-year mark. So that would be greater than a 5-year, 11-month-old. So we're going to write that there. So again, this shows you a gross estimate of a child's performance in relation to children of all ages tested in the standardized sample. So next, we're going to plot our scaled scores on the performance score sheet, which is on page 1. So right here, we're going to refer to this. So we're going to take our scaled score. So our scaled score for visual motor is 17. So we're just going to put a little X there. And then our scaled score for fine motor is a 13. So put a little X there. And our scaled score for gross motor is 11. And you can also, to show the confidence interval, you can put a bar at plus or minus 2 for visual motor, because if we refer to our confidence interval level, this is where we get those numbers. So I'd put a line at 15 and a line at 19. And then for fine motor, it was plus or minus 1, so I'd put one at the 12 and at the 14. And then lastly, for gross motor, it's plus or minus 1, so I'd put it at the 12 and the 11. So this gives you kind of a visual on the ranges. And so after we've done our plotted Ds, we go to the progress scores down here. So this is the first time we've administered to Eric. And so we'd want to put the test date, which was 11/6/14, and his age at this time, he was exactly 5 years old. And so we'd record his raw score here. So we put 90. Raw score for fine motor is 110. Raw score for gross motor is 110. And then our progress score provides us with information about the child's progress and motor skills since the previous MFun assessment. So using these raw scores, we'll refer to Appendix E. So Appendix E allows us to find these scores we want to fill in down here. So what we do is we'd find the raw score on here. So for gross motor or visual motor, we have a raw score of 90. So right here, we'd see that the equivalent for his age right here, we go to 90, is 625. So we record 625 in our progress score. Then we go to the fine motor, and he has a score of 110. So the equivalent for that under his proper age is 623. And then for gross motor, he has a 110 for his raw score. Under his appropriate age, 5 years, is 621. So we'd write that right there. And so after we have these, when you do future tests, you would be able to see the progression, whether he progresses or not. And so then after that, we'd refer to the progress score chart over here. And so we'd plot these numbers. So we have 625. So we'd do a circle because it's the first test. When you do future tests, you use different symbols. You'd use a triangle and you'd use an asterisk for the third test. And then we plot 623. So that's about like right here. And then 621, which is right there. So for example, if you were to get a 700 here, the next time you would do you do a triangle right here. And then this just gives you a visual representation of the progress or lack of progress. And so after we have done this, we go to this fun chart. And so this is called the Neurological Foundations Profile. And this identifies areas and items that the child did not receive full credit for. So if they receive a 0 or 1 on any of the test items that you administered previously, you would refer to these and put circles around them. So for example, let's say we administered the race car game and Eric received a 1 out of 5 on here. We'd go back here and then we would go and circle this 1, and which stands for test item number 1. And so you put a circle here or highlight it to show that there may be an issue with his motor accuracy. So then this may tell you if there's further testing that needs to be needed, or if there's something. This is just basically to show you what you should be aware of if there's a deficit or not. And to discriminate between like a 0, if you received a 1, or if you received a 0, you can just do a different color or a different symbol, something like that between the tests. So since you got a 1, we circle that. And you would do this for all the test items. So you could use your scoring, your raw scores. You could go back and just mark it on here to give you a visual. And so the next thing we'll look at is the test observations checklist. So what this is, it helps to identify the child's strengths and weaknesses in functional contexts outside of a test session. So it can be given to a teacher or caregiver to be filled out, or the examiner could interview the teacher or caregiver. So these checklist scores are criterion reference scores. So these scores provide a way to compare a child's performance to a standard of performance. So we'd refer to Appendix F. I think this is the last appendix we will need to refer to. And so we have 3 checklists within the assessment. And so we're going to look at the test observations checklist, which is this one that we are filling out. So we'd have to fill these out, and it says almost always successful, frequently successful, occasionally successful, and seldom successful or not observed. So we would go through and score all these, and then we get total scores at the end. So let's pretend that we have a total score of 10 that were checked, 10 that were checked here, and 5 were checked. So then we'd have a 60, 20, 5, and a total score of 55. So according to this appendix, and according to his age of 5, the 55 score would fall between right here, which is below average. So this score is below average. So then we would go back and refer to the first page of the form, and we would fill 55 in here under test observations, and we would check below average. So this just gives you a summary of what level they're at, and you would do the same for the home observations and classroom observation forms, which we will not be going over. That's something you would hand out to the teacher or caregiver. So after we do the test observations checklist, we would go on to performance scores differences with test comparisons, which is on page 2. So go back to this page. And this would be this chart right here. So performance score differences. This is comparing the different tests of visual motor, fine motor, and gross motor. So for example, for score number 1, the scaled score we got was 17 for visual motor, 13 for fine motor. Again, visual motor is 17, and then 11 for gross motor, and then fine motor is 13, and then 11. So you'd find the differences right here, and then you take this information to fill out this next chart. So again, about the finding if the differences are significant or not between the test items, you'd refer to page 55, and you would choose the level of significance that you wish. So the critical value for the 0.15 is the significance is 2, and the critical value for the 0.05 level of significance is 3. So let's just choose 0.05. So then this would be critical value of 3. So this tells us that this difference is significant, it's greater than 3. This difference is significant, it's greater than 3. This one is not greater than 3, so no, that is not significantly different. And so after that, we refer to this next chart, frequency and standardization sample, and this would tell us, we circle which one is accurate in reference to the above table and refer to the chart in the manual, page 56. So it's a chart that looks like this. This chart will give us the prevalence. This is the prevalence of the score differences. So since we circled the VM is greater than FM, we're going to find the difference of 4 over here on this chart, and we'll go over, and we see that it's 9.7, and this number is not less than or equal to the 5% in the standardization sample. So then we would check no. And then next we go to the VM is greater than the GM, and we had a 6 here, so we find the 6 and go over, and that's 3.9. So yes, this does fall under the standardization sample. And then lastly, we have fine motor greater than gross motor, and we had a difference of 2. So we're going to find that on here and go all the way over, and that's 27.1. So that would not fall under it either. So that's a no. Okay, so lastly, we have the participation observations checklist summary. So that's this guy over here. So this chart is used after the home, classroom, and test observation checklists have been completed. So that's these things that we filled out and that we referred to earlier. So you would circle the numbers on this list that the child received ratings for occasionally, that would receive scores for occasionally successful, seldom successful, or never successful. And so then you would refer to here and you would circle those numbers on this chart, and that would give you a visual of, for example, if they have mobility issues perhaps, or regulation issues. So this gives you a visual of that as well, and a compilation of all those. So if there's inconsistencies of the score, so let's say the home had these circled, but there's no issues in these 2 observations, that could be due to inconsistencies in the different settings. So maybe one setting is more difficult for the child than others. So it may not necessarily be a global concern, but it's just specific to a situation. And so for more information about this, you can refer to page 64 in the examiner's manual. And this just tells you different ways of interpreting the results of the observation checklist. And that is it.